That child doesn't have any control over that. They might see their parent. Their parent might very well tend to them every day, make sure their clothes are on their back, make sure they are fed, but they have abandoned them emotionally. They do not hug them. They're not verbally affectionate. They do not spend any time with that child. And they look at the child and say, well, at least I'm financially there for you. At least you got clothes on your back. At least you're eating. At least I make sure you get to school. At least you get toys. But that child cannot count on that mother kissing, giving them verbal affirmations, hugging, or just spending time with them. That child cannot count on it. And through that abandonment, we'll just paint the picture all the way up. And I will talk about the father as well. Through that child experiencing that level of abandonment, that child becomes emotionally unavailable because they learn how to cope. They learn how to still go on with life even though those natural needs are not being met. Doesn't mean life is over. No. And I have to paint this picture because if a child, after experiencing abandonment, knows how knows how to cope and adjust and move forward, an adult can also do it. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's possible. Listen to the operative word, possible. And so the platform of being emotionally unavailable is created with that child, even before they get into a romantic relationship. And so here it is when they build friendships at school, in their neighborhood. They have already at an early age experienced abandonment. So they process the world through that same lens. So they don't know who to call a friend. And they're very mindful of who to consider as a close friend. Because the two most important relationships that they have when they are born, those relationships are fractured. And because they are fractured, they operate out of a fractured world. And a child like this can look well put together. But if you notice, or they begin to notice, small little cracks that have formed through their pain of learning how to cope through the things they can't control. And that emotional abandonment could also happen with the father too. The father's working nonstop, or the father never answers their phone calls. It could be devastating in a world where their peers are always talking to their father, are very connected emotionally to their father, and then they turn around and they don't have that same experience. But they learn how to put on a hard shell and cope. And then it's the physical abandonment. A mother can get consumed with a situation and up and leave and disappear. A father can get consumed with a situation or multiple situations and up and leave and just disappear. That abandonment is just as devastating as the emotional abandonment. Because at least with the emotional abandonment, it's possible chances that you still see the person. But with physical abandonment, you spend most of your time imagining what that person is doing, or wondering how they connecting with others, or wondering why they not connecting with you. And we have learned to justify reasons or in abandoning kids, and then trying to iron out the wrinkles of pain. When they become older and they have hard shells, or they dismiss a lot, or are emotionally unavailable. But they're survivors. They have learned to cope. It's like being on a ship as a child, and then all of a sudden the captain just aborts and leaves the ship in the middle of the ocean. Does it mean that boat would sink? No. There's no holes in the boat. It's just the captain jumped ship. Will it be hard to steer back to land? Yes. You're a child. The captain abandoned ship. Is it impossible? No. That ship is just as strong as getting to shore when the captain was on there as it is when the captain is off. And so that's why I say, if a child can cope and move forward after abandonment, so can an adult. And I keep saying this before I get into romantic relationships, because sometimes when pain hits, and pain can be very traumatic, there's a certain shock that goes into the body that, based on the level of pain, on impact, your body can go to a numb state and not even feel the pain initially. Not even know the damage initially. Being almost in a state of denial because all your nerves just go into a frenzy. And then when you look down and you see you done got into an accident where your bone has flipped out through your skin, the moment you look down and you realize it, the moment you scream. It sounds crazy, but that's how the body is wired. And so emotionally, sometimes things can hit us at such an impact, so high, that we go in a state of denial and numbness. But then when it finally hits us, it's almost like we could scream at that moment. Because the level of pain that occurs. But we have a system in us, a flight system in us, that allows us to endure and push through the most impossible situations. So there's a sunny day to come after experiencing abandonment. And so their father or mother, backtracking, I didn't forget my message. So their father or mother decides to physically not be there anymore. And the child has no say-so. Abandonment. And abandonment shows in different ways with different people. Some hardships they experience, where their significant other opts out, what a person attend to most of the time, just not even in abandonment situations. Most of the time, when one area is chaotic, we overcompensate for other areas. So you might find yourself doing extra hours at work to drown out what's going on. You might find yourself becoming busy, jumping into many projects instead of dealing with your emotions at hand. But abandonment left unchecked can make people go to a realm that's unreturnable, that's not returnable. And that's the scary part. That's why you can't go and leave it unchecked. Because there's no guarantee that you will ever return back to the person you were before you experienced abandonment. A child can be all smiles, and then out of nowhere one day their dad just disappears. And he stopped smiling. A flight system kicks in. So if you don't get the affection that you need and want, the words that you need and want, and you're abandoned emotionally and physically, the flight system kicks in. It says, okay, I'm going to still operate and move forward even though I don't get these needs met. And what happens on the flip side, you're not capable of offering those things